back from the caucuses. He worked on former President Barack Obama's campaign teams. Welcome back to DW.
Thank you.
So this Trump victory, widely expected, but have we learned anything from the result?
I think we've learned a couple of things. And first and foremost, I think the former president has a strong grip on his base and on the Republican Party. There was an exit poll being done that 60% said there are MAGA people, so Make America Great Again movement folks. And so I think he has basically replaced the Republican Party with the MAGA movement.
And is that an Iowa-specific phenomenon? Because this can't be across the country, can it?
Well, I guess we'll find out with New Hampshire coming up in 1 week, but Iowa was Trump country. And they even put that on all the placards and on some of the yard signs, this is Trump country. And I mean, you were looking at the exit polls and more importantly, the Des Moines Register poll that came out a couple of days earlier, where we were sitting at 48%. Of course, now he even upped that by 3%. So, again, I think there is a vast majority of Republicans who are saying, Trump is our guy. Yes, we kind of would have liked to see someone new, but even from a policy perspective, listening to Ron DeSantis out on the stomp on the campaign trail, I mean, he was basically preaching a lot of the Trump narrative and Trump vocabulary. So I think most of the candidates have adopted vast portions of what Trump has been saying.
So what does DeSantis and Haley now have to do? Do they just have to do the same but harder?
I mean, obviously it hasn't worked so far. Now you can say, of course, Iowa is not certainly the best demographic for Nikki Haley. She's going to be facing a different type of electorate in New Hampshire, given the fact that independent voters are allowed to vote in the Republican primary. So I think she's got a leg up there. But still, Trump is leading the poll with 12% in New Hampshire. What do they have to do? I think Nikki Haley tried in her concession speech last night. She tried to attack Donald Trump, and she tried to consolidate and try to make sure that people understand she is the alternative. So saying, if you're not happy with Donald Trump, you can't go for Ron DeSantis. I am the only real clear alternative. But if I look at the polling, and not just the polling in Iowa, in New Hampshire, in South Carolina, all across the Republican primary electorate, people are saying, we want Trump.
She was also banging this message, Trump and Biden, Trump and Biden, Trump and Biden, these 80-year-olds.
Yeah.
Is that call landing? Because it's obviously it's not just her saying this.
I think there's a very big difference between calling Joe Biden an 80-year-old and calling Donald Trump an 80-year-old. They seem very different. I mean, I'm sure most of you viewers see it on TV. It's true. Joe Biden appears to be fragile at times. Donald Trump, and again, I saw him multiple times last week, he's funny, he's engaging. And I'm not hyping Donald Trump here on your program, but he is funny, he's engaging, he's got great energy, and that translates. And the Republican base, there was a poll being done, who is most excited and where's the excitement the highest? People are excited about Donald Trump, and I saw it out there. They cheer him up, they fire him up, and he gets that energy. So I don't think it works if you just call him old.
And so what then are the risks for the Republican Party in having a candidate with such a strong personal following? Because we're talking about Trump loyalists rather than Republican Party supporters.
Well, what's the big challenge or risk? I'd say 91 indictments. They're coming down the tube very fast. Trials could start in March. And so I think that is the whole calculus of the Republican and the Trump campaign, to say, we got to wrap this thing up. We got to consolidate the base. We want to push, and there's going to be massive pressure coming at Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley to force him out. He wants to consolidate the whole thing by Super Tuesday, early March, because he also understands that the trials are starting to heat up. And, he's going to be concerned about how it's going to look like if actual indictments and trials are starting coming down the pike.
OK. Iowa, Trump country.
That's right.
New Hampshire next week, a different sort of beast. Talk us through how those voters are different.
Well, again, first and foremost, independent voters, so people who don't sign up to be Republicans, are allowed to vote in the New Hampshire primary. And those people are usually, and again, I'm stereotyping, but they're a little bit more moderate. They consider them fiscally conservative, but on some social issues, they're a little bit more liberal, for example, on abortion. So I think Nikki Haley has a chance to at least get into that pocket and pull a couple of those voters. Again, in the end, it's going to be a question about movement too. Who has the excitement on their side and who's got the momentum? And Donald Trump clearly has the momentum. Here's what Nikki Haley would have had to have done. So she would have had to perform much better yesterday in the Iowa caucuses to take that momentum into New Hampshire. She would have had to win New Hampshire, and she still can, to then take it to South Carolina. This is her home state. She used to be the governor of South Carolina. To then beat Trump in her own home state, and then she would have had to have a shot at actually closing the nomination and making a case for being the Republican nominee. But again, at this point, I don't see how you go forward unless you win a couple of contests in the next two states.
Let's just finish with a quick word about what you experienced yesterday in Iowa and the crowds, the Trump loyalists who appear not to be the sort of swivel-eyed loons that often appear on TV. A much more nuanced crowd.
Well, I'd say there's a vast spectrum. You have some of the loonies who go shirtless and stand in line and are just MAGA all the way. But you have some folks who just say, you know, I'm concerned about the future of our country. I'm concerned with runaway spending. I'm concerned with the wars that are happening. I heard a lot of people talking about World War III and saying that there's just mayhem under Joe Biden and Trump is the only one who can pull this earth back together. At least that's what I heard in the line. So, again, I think you can't just say all Trump voters are crazy. That's just not the case.
Good talking to you. Thanks so much for coming in and joining us. Julius van der Laar.
Thanks for having me.